All right. Wow. So yeah, somebody is also convinced that this was a good talk, a little doggy. All right, then I would say thank you, Shannon, again for these insights. And everybody else, we are going to continue with the panel. I'm happy to welcome three amazing people here on stage with me. First of all, my colleague Anna Graf. She's almost ready. She's coming. Thank you. Also Magnus Jones from Ernst & Young. And Anna is from Arvato, obviously. And Diego Borgo. Great. Okay, yeah. Sure. Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm super, super happy. Oh, yeah, sorry. I was already in talk. Let's first try if the mics are working. Can you all say something?
Hey, yes.
Hello.
Okay, awesome. Everybody's working. Great. So I'm super, super happy.
Are we not fighting, or why is this
We
down?
were fighting it.
You mean, yeah, because it's playground.
When
want,
fight.
if you want. I actually thought we'll have a first debate, but if you want to get physical, up to you guys.
Okay, great.
Good. Now, welcome on stage. Happy to have you three here. Actually, it's a very, very interesting combination because we are all in Web2, building Web3, but from different views and angles because someone has been here working for this company for a long time before moving into Web3. Somebody else moved from outside into Web2 corporation. And somebody is inside many Fortune 500 brands, sorry, but as a freelancer. So we have different ways of working in Web2 for Web3 here. I would say let's just show people how you got into these roles. And I would say everybody introduce yourself quickly and tell a bit more about your journey, how you made it into a Web3 role inside Web2. You want to start?
Okay, thank you.
Fight afterwards.
You can now decide which of these journeys is mine. Who thinks I have always been in Web3, and who thinks that I was in Web2 first? Who is for Web2 first? Okay, great. That's not my journey. So basically, hi, I'm Anna. I started my Web3 journey as director NFTs for a gallery. So basically, I come from the digital art space when I entered the NFT world, and that was quite amazing because we had kind of this startup feeling, doing everything from scratch with a German company, which was a challenge, of course. How do you do the minting? How do you do that legally? And how do you get really like from convincing the artist to do an NFT to finally sell it, not only in crypto, but also in fiat? And this is why I started my journey. And doing this was a lot of fun. But then Bertelsmann, I don't know if anybody is familiar with that company. It's a family-owned company, and basically we are the biggest media company in Europe. RTL Group is part of Bertelsmann, BMG as a music one, and also the biggest publisher, Penguin Random House. I work there as innovation lead Web3 now. And basically, why did I pivot? I thought that art is a great start, and it was an amazing catalyst in 2021 to get people aware of what NFTs are. But I see a lot more potential also for other fields that I work in, like health, public, media, and getting this into the mass market is kind of my journey. Yes.
Maybe one question, quick question to you, because you're already talking about it. How did you actually made it to Arvato? Like, did they approach you? Did you apply? How did this happen?
Yeah, that was interesting because when you were working in the art world in 2021, kind of being with NFTs as assets, I was connected to a lot of VCs. They introduced me to those people. I was consulting, and then they asked me to work there and kind of become an ambassador also within the company and as a speaker, talking about that Arvato is moving into the space too.
Cool. Next one, who wants? Yeah, how did you move into this Web3, Web2 intersection?
It's a long journey. I think that if there is a word to make it simple, I think is resilience. I think that's a lot what takes it within the space. I've been in blockchain since 2017, where I sort of like got to see the use case, the possibilities. I first heard of Bitcoin in 2014, but I was being shielded by a Bitcoin maxi trying to talk me through the whole process, and I just thought it was a scam. I was like, this is a scam. This makes absolutely no sense. I absolutely ignore it. Back in 2017, I got to hear more about blockchain, and that got me really excited because the person I was talking with was more of a technical guy, so he was literally talking about the use case, the possibilities, what can that do for different industries, how does that can impact several different things across humanity and society, more than obviously just cryptocurrencies per se. So that got me really excited. I dove really deep the rabbit hole there because I was doing a backpack trip for 5 months, and every time I had free time, I was just watching videos and getting to know more about it. I got back after that trip, and I've been working on agencies and brands since I was 16 years old. So every client or every brand that I was working with, the first thing I wanted to do was try out that new narrative that I learned of how blockchain is going to be fundamental to change their business. And fast forward a little bit, I was at Adidas for 4 years in the headquarters in Germany, working as an external partner consulting then. And from 2018 to 2019, I kept trying to pitch internally ideas of how they could use technology like blockchain for proof of provenance of sourcing materials for shoes, right? So if you have sustainable shoes, how exciting for the customer would be to look through the chain and understand where those materials that created that shoes were coming from. What is the impact that was creating on the community around that were the place that those materials were coming from, what was the carbon footprint of the production of that shoe. And as we know, this is extremely difficult because not every brand wants to be extremely transparent of their supply chain. So in my terms, they told me to fuck off, and I just kept moving on with other things, right? So I've been really deep into trying to get brands to understand the possibilities of that. But because blockchain per se was just such a hard thing to sell, because one is very technical, who knows how to explain how the blockchain works in super short terms, how you get people to understand that. So, I sort of like took a step away. I was like, listen, this thing's not working. I'm gonna carry on what I was do what I was always been doing, which is branding, marketing, digital strategies. And then everything changed. So I was still at Adidas, and then NFTs showed up, right? And Metaverse showed up. And my friends were already pushing the brand towards the direction, and they told me what they were thinking about, and they used the word blockchain in the middle of all of that, combined with culture, combined with art, combined with lifestyle, combined with co-creation and all of that, and I was hooked. And from there on, since I first joined then to help shaping and delivering into the metaverse that happened back in December 2021, till today being this stage, I haven't thought or done anything else. I just went absolutely all in. I think that this talk, the stuff I'm gonna say might be dangerous for a lot of people out there because I operate in a very extreme way. So, Adidas was my main revenue stream. I just had bought a house here in Portugal. My son was 6 months old, and I dropped everything to dive as deep as I could within Web3 because I really believe that that's the future and that's what's next at scale that's going to impact everyone's life. So when we get to the career advice, maybe we want to take that with a grain of salt.
You're all in on NFTs in career terms, I see. Great. Magnus.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Magnus Jones. I am the corporate bitcher. I'm the one wearing a jacket and a white shirt. So I am the
corporate bitches we are kind of.
Of course. No, I am the Nordic blockchain and innovation leader at EY, the boring auditing company Ernst & Young, who also do fun stuff. So I myself have a background from technology, also economics, and a master's in European law. So actually I started out at EY as a very boring traditional real estate M&A lawyer, while when I started there, we were also doing some tech developments. And there's not that many lawyers who also know codes, so I could do macros and scripts, etc. And then I started working a lot with digital tax authorities, and in 2015, when EY went officially into blockchain, I also said, well, this is the time for us at the law firm to understand the impacts of smart contracts and blockchain and how it will affect all our service line offerings at EY. Not only the tax and law firm, but the accounting part, the investigation part, all of the classic service lines that we offer. And then everyone said to me, you mean this Bitcoin thing that only criminals do? And by the way, isn't this some tech stuff for our IT consultancies? We don't understand this one. So I managed to pursue one partner who was willing to go to jail together with me, and he truly understands this one and said, hey, let's do it. He needed 10 minutes. So since I had been in a role at the firm where I had been able to actually do stuff, predict the future a little bit, and hit on digital tax authorities, new reporting schemes, and all of this, they said, well, I don't know what this guy's doing, but he seems to be having a fair overview, so yeah, let's go ahead and try it. But we'll watch you. And they did. So we slowly built this from just being me and one other person to slowly having a team of 5 persons. And then when the ICO boom hit in 2017, and across January 2018, the C-level board of EY Norway called me in and said, Magnus, you better come talking to us about this blockchain thing. Explain blockchain to us now. We need to understand. And I said, sure. Into the board meeting. Yes, you have half an hour. I said, yeah, I'm going to save you some time today, sirs. I'm going to do this in 3 minutes. Blockchain in 3 minutes. That's the consultancy. Go ahead, boy. I said, yeah, I just have a question for you. And that's what are we going to do? EY, the auditor of the largest bank in the Nordics, DNB. Not if, but the day when they introduce crypto-related products to their clients. Are we A, going to classify the largest bank in the Nordics as a bunch of crooks, criminals, and bandits and say, we don't want anything to do with you? Or B, are we now going to actually understand what they are going to do so we can legally fulfill our obligations that we have as auditor to actually understand what we're auditing? Then it was 2.5 minutes of a little embarrassing quietness before one guy said, Magnus, keep doing what you're doing and we'll take the next point on the agenda. That was the very first time they understood. They don't understand, but they have to understand. So, long story short of everything that has happened there, right now we have built this to now in Oslo alone. We have a team of close to 40 people. Everything from the tax and law firm, where we do core company structuring towards legal opinion on tokens, SAFT agreements, white paper review, terms and conditions, getting people out of jail, fixing their tax returns, whatnot. Towards fraud forensic investigations, the audit, accounting, bookkeeping part of it, and we also do technical implementations. So we have 14 offices, not many people know that we only do blockchain development on. So we have more than 350 core blockchain developers at EY. So we are literally doing the whole package of A to Z of this one. I'm also part of the metaverse team from the global side at EY, so I'm building metaverse offices for the governments. I brought Norwegian governments in as the first one in the world. I design close to them, towards do the core legal stuff, towards do the coding. So I'm literally doing A to Z, and also working close together on naturally the government side. So I'm also an advisor to the counterterrorism group of the United Nations, and I'm also part of the metaverse expert group of Interpol. So in addition to that, it's a wide range. It's everything from working with DAOs, DAO foundations, the startup building guys, towards assisting corporates like, publicly known Adidas, for example, which we have been in their Web3 journey. So it's a wide range.
The way at this date, when Adidas launched, we all have something in common. It was a very special date for us. You for the launch, and on my side, I was auctioning an artwork by Refik Anadol through OpenSea, and Adidas made OpenSea crash. And the auction was about to end. And I was there, and I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Yeah, we can't change it. We have to postpone it for 16 hours. And this is Web3, this is really how we all get into this. Whether we're working for corporate or Web3, it's still challenging. There is still a lot of hurdles that we have to foresee. And it was very interesting, when you get into Web3, it's still this very small niche kind of people that are together, and it's so fabulous that we're meeting so many here again. And now we have to see how can we really spread the word? How can we more focus on what is the product? Because I see that for mass market adoption, maybe the term NFT is even kind of a problem. And it's the same with metaverse. This is why it's spatial computing now, I guess.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
So trendy correct.
But because you're talking about mass adoption, I think one important step is to show leaders of companies why this is important. This is something you mentioned right now, because you mentioned this moment when there was this ICO hype and your bosses actually came to you and asked you, and it was not you going to them and trying to convince them. So my question would be, how is it like in the Web2 world? Is it usually that the C-levels are all aware of it, they're all into blockchain, and they are supporting it from top to down? Or is it more like a revolution from down up the ladder? Because my personal experience so far is that usually there are, of course, C-levels to support it. I saw interviews with MasterCard CEO pushing blockchain everywhere, but I also saw, or I know of enough Web2 brands where people are working on something and they're leaders for Web3, but at the same time the C-levels don't even know they exist because this revenue stream is still so little and insignificant compared to everything else. So what's your experience so far with Web2 brands? Is it more from top to down or from down up?
I mean, things are changing and moving super quick, right? If you look back, December 21, when sort of like this bull run of brands taking part of this space has started, that was absolutely down to top, right? I think that a lot of what's happening today is still in that direction, and I always say that always just takes one degen to start the fire, and it's still a lot of that happening because, as Magnus was saying, it's so difficult to get senior leadership to understand that on a C-suite that they are not the ones that are going to tell you go figure it out. You're going to bring that to them with clear use case or with clear directions, or you're going to do that under the radar and then bring the results and take the risk of being a failure. So I think that despite the amount of use case and sort of like mainstream attention that this space has gotten, I think that is still very much from a management up, right? So a lot of people that I talk or that I engage from a brand perspective when they reach out to wanting to work or have conversations around the potentials of Web3 for large brands, one of the things that they always ask me is like, how do we get our board to understand that? How do we get senior leadership to be on board with us? How do we unlock more budget within our organizations to be able to do it?
That would have been my next question. How do you, if there are some people here working in Web2 who want to convince their management, what would be your tips?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I just gave a talk today about that, right? I think that what has happened since December 21 to now has been heavily focused on the V1 playbook, right? The first playbook we start writing on how brands can operate within the space, which was all connected to NFTs as an asset class, right? So how do you drive revenue through minting? How do you drive revenue through secondary market, royalties and so on? And you know much better than I because that's your space, but it's fucking difficult for big brands to operate within that use case as an asset class because that involves convincing your legal team, that involves corporate, that involves treasury. How do you bring cryptocurrency into a public traded company? You have on-ramp payments, but a lot of those big companies need to create a spin-off company to run those initiatives through. And once you finish all that work, apart from like the big exceptions like Adidas, Nike, and some of the luxury brands, there is not a single brand that has profited immensely from that, right? So the work is huge, the risk is tremendous, and the upside that you're taking right now is really low because most of those brands are focused on that use case, but most importantly in a very specific niche audience, which is the Web3 native user, right? So with all that said, to go back to your point, is what is the next for those brands, right? What is next? How can they still leveraging Web3 as a technology, blockchain as a technology, getting away from this V1 playbook and start shaping the next playbook on how brands can take advantage of that space as using the technology as an enabler rather than the product per se? Because with NFTs, as we know now, from what we have seen with 350 plus brands applying against that concept, NFTs are the product. You buy the NFT. right? But what about NFT being the enabler of a better experience? What about Web3 being an enabler of new revenue streams or an enabler of new ways of engaging with customers? So that's kind of like where I'm headed. And this talk I just gave today was an invitation, an open invitation, which I think is extremely exciting for people that are not in the space yet, but have a very heavy Web2 background, because that complexity that you have to be a DGen, you have to be super deep into Discord, you have to understand the culture. I think that from a Fortune 500 standpoint is fading out day by day. It will still be relevant in some cases, like what Nike is doing, on some partnerships that other brands are doing with, like Gucci, with Yuga, will still be relevant, but I think it's losing much more its relevance that it used to be. Like, if you are not a DGen, you cannot talk about NFTs, right? I think that's fading away.
And let's ask, who's on Discord here? Who's on Discord? Raise your hands. Okay, so this is exactly like, I am not anymore.
And I hate it.
And I am not anymore. I quit Discord exactly for this, because the user experience, if you want to be in a project, is just really bad. And I'll let you finish.
I don't think I have, not only one, all of my contacts has been hacked there in some kind of way, and you can never trust a link to press them.
But this is why, for really big companies, as you said, Fortune 500, I can talk from our perspective. Bertelsmann is quite a decentralized company, you would say, because we have many different divisions, as I said, and we chose both directions. We have a blockchain community where everybody can join, and where we introduce different projects to the whole company, whoever wants to see them. And on the other hand, we have a leadership circle. And this leadership circle, we have participants from every division. So someone from RTL is there, someone from Arvato Systems is there. That's I am representing there. And then we can talk like in the small level, where we can give like directions to the C-level. So this is quite close. And the interesting part is that we have now adopted this concept not only for our own company, but for an industry circle. Why is that so relevant? Because exactly what you said, we are all having the same struggles. And it's quite different from being in a startup where you just say, okay, like you have 2 weeks now, you finished that project, Anna. It was like this kind of time frame that I had sometimes. And now, exactly like you said, and it's not only that, GDPR, like when you say, cool, now we can collect a lot of metadata. But how do we handle this in the end? And having like all the same issues, I think it's very cool to talk on that level together, just because we have the same issues, and it's most of the time one person or a very small group of people within a company who is working a lot to get that into like the company itself. This is how I see it, and this is why in this industry circle you feel so understood.
And I think I would add to that, to just go a little step back to your initial question also, back to, if some of you are now looking into, you have a passion to drive, you want to sort of go into Web3 and drive your company further, and that's down to what I miss at all conferences, and that's down to what we talk about here as NFTs, which is just something that went from a PFP to something more that we can possibly use in a DeFi ecosystem or whatever, or build a fucking community. But what actually corporates care about is their supply chains. They care about their payment rails. And that's where you can actually use NFTs. So for example, we have been using NFTs for supply chain purposes since 2016. So one of the public cases out there is Peroni, the beer manufacturer. Every time they produce a case of beer, we apply NFT. And that's not because we hope that that NFT will raise in value. That will be very much expensive beer. But it's rather that they understand that this whole ecosystem is going to change. And they understand that, this is not about the NFT per se, or which bloody blockchain or protocol you are on. They understand that what they invest in is sunk cost. You have to understand that one. You're building, you're learning, you are at stage 0.1. And they also understand then that, well, we can now apply, call it stupid data, like where does the malt come from? Where has the beer been produced? What's the temperature, storage? Where does it has been shipped? All of that. But they are also saying, hey, within 3 to 5 years plus, do we believe that we will only use traditional fiat currency and our existing banking system? Possibly not. We will most likely use some type of stablecoin, which within 5 years will be in a regulated way. Just look at Circle. They had a larger office in Davos this year than Facebook Meta. They are there. There's someone pushing this one. They will be there, 100% guaranteed. And we will also get CBDCs. You can like it. I hate it as well, but they will come. So they are prepared, and it will be a token standard. And just to take the example of the Norwegian Central Bank, they just had a hackathon. They created a test CBDC on Hyperledger Besu, which is a version that is supporting ERC20 token, Ethereum tokens. Not many people also know that the Norwegian Business Register Office has created a public solution on the public mainnet of Ethereum for the shareholder register. Because they said, if we are to build this one, it has to be public. That's also on the ERC20 level. So during the hackathon, all the banks, they could connect to this test pilot, pay the updates in the register using the ERC20 token, and it all worked, regardless of which ERP system, the data system they were on. And they also understand, oh, we can actually use Ether if we need that one, or any other of 20x shitcoins here. And we can also use stablecoins. And guess what? Do any of you know the settlement volume of stablecoins in the world? Transaction-wise? I can tell you, Amex, they had $1.1 trillion in settlement last year. MasterCard, they had $2 trillion. And then mainly USDC and Tether together, they had $7.4 trillion. They were only beaten by Visa, who had $12 trillion in settlement.
But do people hire because of that?
Just 1 second. And this year, that volume will pass from USDC and Tether. And that does something to your corporation. So if you manage to put this one into perspective, that it's not only building a community, and with all respects, regardless of which brand, and we are supporting the majority of them out there, regardless of which brand it is out there, if it's Nike or Gucci, Louis Vuitton, whatever it is, they don't approach all of their millions of global clients. They say, fine, it's Web3, play around with it, but we address a market of 10 to 20,000 people. And that's where they are. So we have to be realistic, but if you manage to put it into perspective of where is our supply chain, what is going to be affected in the token economy, well, then people might listen. So that's the angle that I would put into, in addition to, of course, all depending on your product and services, which can be a perfect fit, saying go ahead, like you exemplified in your presentation today. You make millions there already today if you do it in the right way, but not everyone does it.
Yeah, but coming back to the career thing, because UI is the best example. You have so many different people working everywhere, and you cannot find them, and it's really hard to figure a team.
Just say one here and one there.
Yes, I
We're
know
everywhere.
this. I know this very well. But I think this is exactly, I think all in this room are convinced that Web3 is a thing. This we don't have to talk about. The thing is more like, does it really lead to more people getting employed in the Web2 space, having something like Web3 or metaverse in their title? And this is the interesting part. We can say these are the numbers, and this is what I'm going to do now for business plans. I think you have to put exactly this into like, okay, these are the figures that we can see in the future. In 2 years, this is going to happen. And this is why it's so interesting. As I said, for art, it's super easy. You have a certificate, and you don't need a paper certificate to get a digital artwork. Super simple. But how do we now apply these? And we have to put this in very simple phrases to make it understandable for everybody in the company. That also we need to hire people to get the IP and to get the knowledge into these companies.
I think we talked a lot about how to convince the management now to look more into it and to see the value. And I think there were amazing propositions made here to really show the numbers and not just a community thing and not just a playground, to show that others are hiring. I think one powerful statistics for us back then was also to say, okay, if you look at the top 100 brands out there, how many are already in Web3? How many are exploring Web3? It was 80% of them were at least exploring the opportunities. And if you see that, that's when management is more convinced, like, okay, it's like a herd, you know, you don't want to be the last one in the herd.
It's called FOMO.
Exactly.
But
That's
not only that,
concept.
but Anna, we are both members of the board of the Hanseatic Blockchain Institute, and we are now doing a study there, W3 now, where really challenging companies to answer these questions, to get an overview of who is in there and also who is hiring. Because this is the interesting part. Are they even looking into this? Are they only working with agencies to do exactly what you said? Because, oh no, I don't want to handle crypto. Let's do this someone else. Like most companies have done so far, like also Adidas Toyotas, Porsche. But to then make the move to get the IP into your own company, which has also been happening, this is, I think, the interesting move when it comes to Web2.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And since we're at, I think, I'm not sure about the time, but I think we're towards the end of this panel. Maybe 15 minutes? Oh, good. Because I want to make a short Q&A as well. Anyway, so my final question would be, imagine, like, there are some people here, maybe they're working in Web2, or no, actually they want to work in Web2, but do Web3 there. What is an opportunity to enter your company? Are you guys hiring, or do you know from your clients base that somebody's hiring in the near future? What kind of roles are these, and what would be your tips for an applicant? Because if I'm not in Web2 yet, or not in your company, I might be unsure. How do you approach this whole process? What's your tip to get hired?
Yeah, so that gets me back to my point I was trying to make before. So within sort of like this new era where NFTs and asset class is not necessarily like the DJing conversation or the thing that you need to like really know because you're super deep into the rabbit hole. I think that the opportunity right now to get into this space is getting more and more, sort of like niveled for everybody else, because regardless of your Web2 experience, there is something that you can contribute for a company, because now you can bring that Web3 perspective to them, but you can combine that with your Web2 background. Right, so I think that that's kind of like the thing I hear the most every time, because a lot of people will approach me to understand if there's someone that I know or someone in my network that I could recommend them to work with. And the first thing they say to me is like, we like the DJs and the way, people that have spent so much time within that community thinks about it, but we need someone that has, Web2 background. Like, we need the combination of both, right? And a lot of times sometimes I went on Twitter, I don't do that often, but I went on Twitter to talk in some Twitter space or something. And the more I did it, and the more I start talking about LinkedIn being such a powerful, platform for you to engage with brands or to find brands that, you want to work with or that want to work with you, the more I start seeing like PFPs showing up on LinkedIn, because those people also start to understand that, of course, all what they've done within these last years was super exciting and very profitable for a lot, but what's next when that wave is gone, right? And I think that the real advantage right now lays on combining your Web2 experience with the Web3 experience you've acquired. I've seen 80% of the room is on Discord, so I'm assuming that you guys are really, and girls are really deep into that. And that's exactly what I've done, right? I've been in marketing since 16 years old. And as soon as I had my first really deep rabbit hole experience, but also combined with my Web2 experience and then the corporate knowledge, those are sort of like the weapons I went out there with, which is, I know marketing, I know branding, I know strategy. I deeply understand the tech, and I deeply understood the culture, and I combined those things together. And, for a period of time, I became almost like this unicorn that was really hard to find within that corporate level, that understands the corporate talk, knows how to deal with the bullshit politics, and it's sort of like ready to get in a way that I can guide them throughout whatever is happening. So that's sort of like the way I think that whoever is in this room right now could take advantage of that, because it's not just about being super deep into Web3 anymore. It's about combining the both, and everybody's looking for that. And the talents out there are super scarce. Every single brand is building either a small Web3 studio or a larger Web3 studio. We've seen Nike doing it, we've seen Adidas doing it, we've seen Gucci doing it, we've seen Volkswagen Group doing it. Every major brand out there is doing it. Maybe it's going to take a bit longer right now because of recession, because of global economy. But if there is a takeaway from that, is that we are at the beginning of the next iteration of the internet. And the internet is going to keep evolving and keep iterating, and there is nothing we can do to stop it. No matter whether mainstream adoption is, mainstream media is saying that what metaverse is dead, that NFTs are dead, that Web3 is dead, the internet is far from that. And we are going towards the next evolution and interaction. And if you're able to position yourself at that early stage, it's a great place to be. I wish I could have been the age I am with the knowledge I have right now back when the internet went bananas back in mid-90s, right? That's where we are at. And if you feel that that's something you're passionate about, I think there's a lot of potential, but it's not going to be an easy ride. I mean, you touched a lot of that at the beginning. It's a complex industry, it's the Wild West, but so was the internet in the 90s too.
And talking from our perspective, Arvato Systems is a great company for that. And I would always say, do you really need Web3 in your title? Or can you start at any division, whether it's public, whether it's health, we're talking about supply chain solutions. When we really believe that Web3 is the next step of the internet, it's not a vertical, it's a horizontal. And that means it will touch every area that we're working in right now. So this means when you go in there, for whatever job that is, you can really bring the Web3 perspective and there grow with it. We call us intrapreneurs, not entrepreneurs, because we work within a company.
I think also at Salesforce they have this ambassadorship program. I think about 100 or 200 people who are also from different divisions, but
Yes.
they all are kind of involved in Web3 in part-time at least to push this internally.
And you can really grow from that. And then you find, I would always say, your tribe throughout the different divisions, where people are also really actively looking for you, because there are so many clients asking. It's not that the clients are not asking. They are like, what, hey, how can we learn about this? Do you have an expert? Can you please give us some workshop or whatever? And then it comes back to these experts who amplify also within the company. I think this is a very good way of really moving forward, also with the clients, because I tell you, every company, Kostenstelle. This is the word when you come into the corporate space. It's always some cost have to be from some division. And if you have a client who wants a project, you can always start with that, because nobody will say no to that part. If you find a client who's going to do the project with you, then you are always ahead of the game.
And I would say, if you are to go into trying to pursue someone within a classic Web2 company, to go further, ensure that you have support at least from one person at a higher level, at preferably a C-level. Because we have seen so many examples also where someone just falls for the hype from what you mentioned about FOMO, because previously you were like, not quite sure, we're not going to walk in deep snow. Oh, suddenly we have legal regulatory issues, we don't like this one. No, let someone else do it. But then suddenly, oh, it's not only competitor A and B, it's C, A, double F, everyone is doing it. Hell yeah, we have to do it. But still then, then we have seen it so many times, just hiring one person. You're head of Web3, your responsibility. 3 months, okay, where's the revenue? Hey, do you have any revenue? No, it's complex, Complex? Show me the revenue, otherwise you're out.
I know that question with the revenue.
And that's down to what I also so clearly see, just to recap the whole circle of your first question, from the general C-level group, and that's also internal at EY, and that's naturally, because at the C-level group, there's a bunch of smart people. They all feel they're very smart because they're C-level. I'm fucking smart. And I don't understand this blockchain thing. So I heard it so many times, and you can see my travel expenses back from 2015 until today. They're 100% correlating with the price of the Bitcoin. And it's interesting. Then we need to talk. Supply chain and business and everything. Oh, it's going away. No, it's back. Oh, we need to talk. And all of them are saying, explain blockchain to me. If you do it in 3 minutes, I'll buy it immediately. And I think we need to raise it to a level there also where you need to come to an acceptance where you actually want to understand all the underlying stuff. Well, that's totally possible, but you need to lift it to a level where you put the macro perspective, like I mentioned, into what does this affect this type of business. And there's so many different types of Web2 companies, so I'm not saying there's one solution, but you have to, regardless of where you are going. And back to if we are hiring, yes, I'm hiring, but it's a struggle, because I need to find a corporate bitch who actually understands the setup of a large dinosaur like EY. You cannot just go in and be free to do whatever you would like to. You need to push limits. You need to push the boundaries. You need to put yourself in a position where I am, where people are literally spitting after me in the hallway because they don't understand a shit about what I'm doing, while I have support from a core team. So it's not straightforward. There's not any company that is 100% will go all into Web3. We all believe in this. And that's where you need to find a balance and be humble enough to say, well, the company you're going into, understand what they're doing. Don't go in and say, hey, I know everything about Web3, but have no clue about your business or your company. That's the most important thing I would say. So yes, I'm hiring, and we have been looking a long time, and now I just found 2 law students who's also deep into Web3. They understand the law and how to act and do the business, but they can also talk the same language. So it's not an easy one, I would say, but it all depends where you are. You can come in corporates where they have departments like the ones that Diego is supporting, on lots of these ones where they have running projects, where they could need a core person, where they're not interested if you know the company or not. But I'm just saying, if you're going into a cold call to a company who is not deep into this one or has briefly started, I would say you need to sell in some other skills and place that one as some spice in addition to what you can offer.
Yeah, I think to add to this, so thank you guys, everyone, so that you're pushing Web3 in the Web2 environment, because also from my own experience, I know this is a struggle. I remember our conversation, I think our first one, I was just out of a meeting where I was just like, oh God, I really love my company, but they really, I don't know, don't understand that much about Web3, which is normal. This is our usual setting, but sometimes it can be frustrating. And I remember what you said, Diego, that you were like, okay, but that's the challenge, that's the awesome thing, to not just work for an incredible Polygon or Solana, where everybody's on the same front with you, everybody understands Web3, and everybody's like hyped for it, but it's like, you constantly have to remind people, okay, all right, explain what is blockchain, what is Web3, then the merits of it, and then they might understand it, they might not, because how long did it take me to understand this? And I mean, I was into it, but it took quite some time, so we shouldn't expect it from the others who are maybe not that passionate in the moment. So, but still, I think it's super, super important that we push it, because very often degens ask me, why are you still working in Web2? Like, why don't you join the revolution? I think it's a psychological concept. I do believe in revolutions, but if we look at revolutions, they also have backlashes, because if we look at French Revolution, it was really hardcore, and afterwards there was again monarchy, and it's a back and forth. And I think evolution is an important concept as well, to actually push it in Web2, to try to marry the two concepts. Just because
it's an evolution, as we've heard. I mean, we all have been here for more or less some years, and it's just happening. And at some point, people might say, oh, that's a revolution, because they haven't followed this journey. And this is why it's so important to have these people who build the bridges and who do not say, like, I think that we are always the one who have to accept a lot of things, because I would also argue, do we really go full Web3? There's always a centralized part. When we talk about, in general, also for DAOs, I don't see that there's anything fully decentralized if we talk about this like communism. If you say like hardcore, then we have to, like, this is always the balance that we have to find, also with new technologies. Just as you said, it's a combination of things, and I also see Web3 is the infrastructure for the enabler for the metaverse, where we then can trade things, and which makes it a lot easier to understand. And AI will be the content deliverer, and also for the data in the end. Very important. So this is the evolution of technology that is moving forward at the moment, and this is why it's just not a contradiction. It is just the natural part of what is happening at the moment, and we are part of that.
And when you talk about the evolution, just to summarize, in also, I think a common misunderstanding out there in general is that C-level groups, they take everything as blockchain as one thing, sort of saying, Web3 blockchain, yeah, the same thing. This is the Bitcoin thing that came in 2009. They will apply the rule of thumb and say, hey, all new emerging technologies, rule of thumb, 10, 11 years before they get mainstream. What F is happening here? Nothing is happening. Then you have to explain to them, you know what we are talking about now, what the central banks are building on, what the whole ecosystem is building on, what Peroni, Coca-Cola, Microsoft, all of our clients that we are supporting are preparing themselves for token economy, is based upon more or less Ethereum in 2015 when smart contracts came out. Oh, guess what? It's in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years that lots of stuff are going to happen. Take NFTs then. Well, you can claim NFTs go back to 2014, whatever. Some say I had a punk in 2017, whatever. But take 2021 for 1 year and apply 10 years to that. Then you have the different perspective. So you need to put them into different categories and not mix up all in one big soup that looks very grumpy towards a person who is putting everything in and it doesn't taste good as well. So you need to take out and make separate dishes and see how you can combine them, just like you said.
Yeah, what's the most tasty part for the recipient? Where at the end of the session, I would say if somebody is really into it, we can have one Q&A question, because otherwise we're all heading to the party, I assume. Is there somebody wanting to pose?
Otherwise, they can ask Leicester, of course. We are all on LinkedIn, and you can reach.
Yeah, exactly. So feel free to reach out to the amazing panelists afterwards as well, either on LinkedIn or here, actually. But is there a question somebody wants to ask where you feel like, okay, I want to ask this now?
Anyone want a job?
Okay, so I would say thank you so much, guys, for this interesting and intense debate. And I would say, again, keep building in Web2, Web3 and Web2. It's really important work you do. And I would say, let's all enjoy the party now. Oh, and let's take a picture.
And thanks for staying so late.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.